Gama pani pa ma pani ni pa ma ga ma re sa ni sa pa ma ga ma pani pa ma ga ma pani sa re 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 re.
मुझे पता नहीं मैं कहाँ से शुरुआत करूं।
तुमने हमेशा मुझे बहला फुसला कर चुप करा।
सच है दीपक, अगर वो आदमी मेरे कमरे में आ गया मैं उसको कुछ भी करने देती।
मैं आ गया हूँ, मैं संभाल लूंगा। इसका मतलब पता है क्या है? इसका मतलब है तुम्हारे मामा तुमसे बहुत प्यार करते हैं। 13 साल की कच्ची कली रंडी बन गई।
प्लीज।
He's dead.
Welcome, Mahesh Dattani, to my space. I'm so happy to see you after so many years. I don't know when was the last time I met you in person, but my first recollection of you is seeing you in what can only be described as a writer's sanctuary. And it seemed to have been made of brick and sunlight, and you had a skylight through which the night sky peeped into your house. I have very vivid memories of this. And you had like a performance space in your garden where actors could perform and rehearse. And you had a studio. And correct me if I'm wrong, and you had 2 blue Apple Macs.
My God, you remember that?
I remember that. And that was what struck me because one was for worldly affairs and one was only for your writing. And it struck me because I realized at that moment how sacrosanct you kept your writing from all contamination, be it real, be it digital. And I've envied you so much over years, over these, decades. Because for writers, in a world where it's so hard for us to make a living as writers, you've built a life. And such a beautiful life, you have beautiful creative life you have built. And from someone, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, who wanted to be a copywriter, you went on to become the first English playwright to win the Sahitya Academy Award. What made you want to suddenly choose writing as your calling, and what made you believe that you could, come as far as you have?
Well, first of all, I really, in my wildest imagination, I did not expect to do as well as I have with my theatre and writing. And as to what made me choose writing, I don't know. It was quite by accident because I've always been interested in theatre. So if you ask me, I think of myself as a dramatist first and then a writer. But of course, the aspect of theatre which I'm drawn to most is the writing of it, the playwriting. But I'm just as engaged as a director, and it's really theatre that makes me come alive. So to answer your question, it's, I would do it anyway, even if I wasn't getting paid to do it. If I was doing something else, I would find time to do what I love most. And you as a writer can, I'm sure, understand that sometimes, what you write may not be what is accepted as a business proposition, but still you want to do it. Right? There's some need, some urge which just sends you in that direction. And I think it's, to put it very simply, it's just passion. And one can only thank God that one has a passion to do something.
Yeah,
And
I think with you,
that's what.
you've always heard yourself. You've always heard this voice within too, and you followed it wherever it's taken you. Not many of us do that. Like, so many of us are scared to follow that.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. And I wouldn't be completely honest if I said I wasn't scared either, because you don't get a paycheck at the end of the month. You don't even know whether you're going to be successful with what you're doing. Even that's completed. So all you have is a need. It's not even a want. It's more of a need to do it. And you do it like how you scratch an itch, I guess. So that's it. Yeah.
You succeeded before the age of social media. You succeeded before the age of hyper PR campaigns to build personas and success stories. I don't know if this passion for excellence exists anymore on a very wide scale. I think it's more about chasing limelight. Maybe I'm being a cynic, but do you ever feel a sense of disconnect with the world around you? And what do you make of these reductive conversations and tweets and this overwhelming digital environment where stories cannot be told, in a leisurely way? And do you ever want to adapt to it, or do you want to keep yourself in that space that you have always inhabited, that I'm going to tell the stories that I want to tell?
Well, I think it's, as a writer, I feel that I write for my time and place, and I want that time to be now and not yesterday, because I think it would be very comfortable to do exactly what I've been doing 20 years ago. But I do see the point and the benefit of what you're saying, of having grown as a writer, I mean, in a time when we didn't have access to all this social media and all the platforms that are available. But I think now that you have so many opportunities, it really is up to the individual to use it well. Like it's an age where you select what you're going to focus on. It's not that, okay, I have one option, I have two options, I have three, and that's all I have, and I'm going to go where I'm drawn towards out of these three, whatever it is, right? Now we have thousands of options. So I think you have to be very, very selective in what you want to do. And I don't think the downside of the social media, the way I see it, is that it controls you. That there is a trend and you need to keep up to the trend, whatever it is, that you've got to have so many likes, and you've got to present so many images of yourself or your interest or whatever it is. And it's these visuals that draw eyeballs. And I think there's a great danger in that, is that you're being more reactive than proactive. With that you cater yourself to what is expected. Right. With all this media. And I think if you resist that and you make your choices, you can use the social media very well to good effect, not only to be creative, but to do something that will last a little longer.
Do you ever want to probably write a web series? Are you tempted to do that? Because I know that many of your plays have been digitized. This is the new age of content creation, where even writing goes through a certain kind of transformation, digitally speaking. Do you think this is a healthy trend, and do you see yourself adapting to it and contributing to it in the future, in the near future, and writing something? specifically for a web platform or a OTT platform?
Yeah. Well, I see some of the OTT platforms stuff, and some of it is really very good. It isn't like the television that I grew up seeing, where it was obviously a pioneer's time and it was catering to a very basic need of, something, a very basic melodramatic form of storytelling. Which is something I grew up with. That's what television meant to me, growing up with that medium. But now when I see some of the series and things, I could see how well written they are and how well done and how well acted they are. I think there is scope, but I think the danger with web series today is the same danger which you had with commercial Bollywood cinema some time back, is that the shots are being called by people who are interested in the marketing of it. So there's a great danger that when the marketing experts dictate as to what kind of series is going to work and what's not, I think that's when it's going to dig an early grave for itself. And that's what happened with so much of commercial cinema, probably in the 90s or whatever. There was this period where we just had so much of, I want to do this because, something that happened earlier was a big hit. So it's just a question of repeating it. I may be wrong, but I do see, the OTT platforms as being market-driven as well now. But I think they are also in a safe position because they need so much content that they're willing to take a risk with some stuff and say, okay, let's try something different. It may work, it may not. We'll take that gamble. But we must have this staple, whatever the trend is, whether it's sensational subjects or whether it's sensationalizing, women's issues or sexuality or whatever the trend is. And therein lies the danger that anything that is of any kind of genuine social concern then becomes a trend. Right, so there is that danger as well, that if you look at, say, the kind of effort that went into something like women's position in the workplace, the harassment or whatever, it's very easy to sensationalize that and use that, exploit that for a successful web series, right? But I think if you have storytellers and directors who are doing it with sincerity because the subject means something close to them personally, then I think it's a great platform to have, because you're not confined to this paradigm which is given to you by successful producers and directors, that this is what a successful film ought to be. I think those things are changing, and I think that's a good thing.
Would you be interested in doing something for an OTT platform if you were offered an opportunity?
Well, I have been offered something as a writer, and I must say I'm very tempted to do something, but the whole process is so exhausting. I'm not quite sure I fit into that very well. So I'm, maybe I'm a little too comfortable. Maybe if I was a little uncomfortable, I would say, oh God, please, I need to do this now. But I think I've just gotten a little too comfortable with my theater and the kind of writing I do for theater, that it's not such a big temptation. And it's not something that, oh, if it happens, it's fine. It doesn't. It requires way too much energy and hard work to pursue it. And it has nothing to do with talent. Of course, there are lots of talented people with great ideas, and it's possible to do that. But to develop a great idea and to actually get it there and get it greenlit is a lot of hard work. And takes up a lot of time and a lot of mental energy, and rightly so, because people don't owe you a production or a green light. You've got to earn it, right? So I'm not quite sure I'm willing to work hard enough for it at this point. I don't know. Maybe if I was 20 years younger.
You worked hard enough. You have worked
Yeah.
more than so many of us. And you were talking about pioneers, and I was just thinking of, how naturally and easily you have pioneered, you've broken ground and created a certain kind of conversation in English theatre, which wasn't there before you came. And you've just done it very quietly and very, very, in a very prolific way. And most of the work that you've done, all of your plays, with Dance Like a Man or Tara or Bravely Fought the Queen, or so many of the other works that you've created, they have talked about gender constructs, constructs of class and patriarchy and sexuality and individual identity and their conflicts with, society and families and dysfunctional families. And there's so much raw material in your work which stays relevant till date. I mean, they are still relatable stories. And all of this happened much before this whole conversation about intersectional, debates about all of these issues had started. So, do you feel sad, or do you feel surprised how prophetic you were and how relevant these stories are still? We haven't evolved beyond these issues even now. Perhaps they're spiraling backwards even more. What do you think about that?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, I do feel a little sad with how, when we're looking at changing times, we're also looking at taking 2 steps backwards. In fact, I was just having this dialogue with a friend of mine just a month ago, that the play Final Solutions, which I wrote in the late 80s, that to do a production now may be more difficult, given the kind of situation we have in the country, where this entire thing about, especially the climactic moment, where there is a coming together of spaces between the Muslim boys and the Hindu family, that would be so horribly misread today, that that's really sad. That's sad that a play like that, which has gained relevance in some way, also becomes a very contentious subject because of the political environment today. So yes, there are moments like that, but there are moments where I feel that the earlier attempts I made at writing about issues concerning gender and sexuality have been further developed. Right, that I wrote 30 Days in September. It was actually commissioned by an NGO on surviving sexual abuse in childhood. And I'm happy that, that subject is further explored, and that it's a subject that's being talked about now. And there are writers who are writing slightly, more sort of maybe going a little deeper into the subject and looking at nuances there. So I guess I feel good that I'm a part of that continuum. That is definitely worth sort of saying that, yes, I did my bit there. But that's all on hindsight. I mean, when I was doing that, and even today when I'm writing, I think I've just focused on creating it. I'm so concerned about the dramaturgy and the aesthetics, and how am I telling my story? Can I tell it better? or whatever. Those are my concerns. But it's always good that on hindsight, I feel that yes, there is a social voice, there is a socio-political voice that I have, and it somehow seeps through in the work.
I wanted to ask you that because the story is like what every writer has a process. You know, there's maybe some trigger, there's maybe some stimuli, there's some thing in the environment that starts a process of imagining a scenario and then a story and a character. Something else develops from there. I wanted to know if you were ever, like I said, you were not, but this larger purpose of storytelling, has it been a kind of a subconscious thing at the back of your mind that you cannot tell a story which is irrelevant? Because most of your work has a certain resonance, it has a certain relevance. Not only is it a time capsule of the space that it was created in, it continues to remind us of how important it is to be introspective as a society, as individuals, as people who live in a family unit and interact with each other. The larger purpose of storytelling, I mean, you said that it's not a conscious process, but was it ever you wanted to do something through your writing? Was it ever an unconscious thing behind this whole body of work that you have created?
Reema, that's a very interesting question, and I'm not quite sure I have the right answer for it, to myself, I mean. But I have thought about it, and I have come to the conclusion that because I wrote and because I continue to write, that I have discovered my social voice. It's not the other way around, that I had a social voice and then I took to writing as a way of, so that is what I've concluded, that that's probably what it is. But having said that, even if I look at the very first play I wrote, Where There's a Will, there is a strong statement about, as you said, patriarchy. And now 30 years later, or 35 years later, when I look at it, I do see the theme of the exercising of the patriarchal sort of monster, as that's thematically it's there, but that's not what I thought of when I was writing the play. So it's a very tricky question. I think it's a combination of who I am, what my gaze is, what makes me respond, what aspect of my my world bothers me or rattles me, or something that I feel I need to respond to. And I think that's the only thing I can be truthful to. It could well have been that what interested me may not have interested others, and I'm sure there are good writers who face that there's nothing wrong with the writing, or there's nothing wrong with the story. It just may not be the one that people want to hear at this particular moment.
Right.
So also possible.
Right. You recently posted an article about how a creative mind, a creative person processes the world differently. Did
Yeah.
you ever feel like a misfit, growing up, because you looked at everything very differently from everybody else? Do you remember any event, any moment where you felt, no, this is how I see the world, this is how everybody else looks at the world?
Yeah, I've had several instances, and I continue to have it. Of course, now I'm not so annoyed, I'm just amused. The fact is, because I try and look at multiple perspectives, so in that sense, I'm fairly open-minded. And that's always been seen as someone who is not quite sure about what they think. We're sort of conditioned to believe that you only have an identity if you have an opinion on things. And, very much like a scientific mind. I mean, if you are researching on something, you have to research with an open mind. You can't start with a conclusion and then base your research and then validate your conclusion by selecting a research. You research with an open mind, not knowing what that conclusion is. There may not be a conclusion. You may not arrive at something, right? But you go deeper and deeper, and then you infer, and then you find something. I don't think art is very different from that. Is that you do have an open mind. You look at things, something may interest you, and the last thing you want to worry about is that, oh, this is all it means. Is this something, oh, but that's been done before. It's just that you open yourself out, you open your heart, your mind, your guts out to something. You will find something, an aspect of it that only you could write about, or only you could tell that story. And so I think for me, having an open mind is very important, and that's something I am at conflict with some people because they are looking for your opinion on things, and if you don't have a clear-cut opinion, and if you are open-minded and you haven't drawn a conclusion, or you're not judging things, then you are being judged at as someone who's not quite sure of himself.
But anybody who would make the effort of going through your work and seeing the things that you've written about would know where you stand as a human being and as an artist. But that takes effort, right? I mean, it takes a little bit of an effort to go deeper into a person's
Absolutely. It
life
does.
work.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. That it's, anyway, I can't expect everyone that I know to make the effort to see it. It's not that important, but if 4 or 5 people do it, I think that's good enough. That's stimulation for me, because then I know I'm going to get a response that is based on what I've created, and not just a generic kind of statement as to what is this about, or why are you writing about this. So,
Over the decades that you've been active in theatre as a director and as a writer, there have been so many debates about, some of them are very reductive as to what is the future of theatre, because every 2 years we hear this and theatre continues to go on. But post the pandemic and the kind of scenario that we are in, how have you dealt with this time as a person, as an artist? What do you see theatre evolving into with time to adapt to the kind of situation that we are in right now?
Well, all I could say is that theatre as an art form does respond to its time. It is, the present time is so important to the doing of theatre. And I think there is such a wonderfully complex relationship one has with time and place in the theatre that is bound to adapt. So whatever the times are, theatre will adapt to that. I mean, we've seen that very clearly in the pandemic, where space was taken away from theatre, and that was so unexpected. Who would have thought that you wouldn't have a space to perform in, where all of us could come together and perform and experience as an audience in the same space? That was such a given. I mean, we just took it for granted, right? But yet, even so, when space was taken away, we did manage. What we did was we fragmented the space, just as we're doing now. Is that yours in your space, in your piece of space, I'm in my piece of space, and yet we've come together to have this communication, right? So we found a way. Had it been in other times, even say 10 or 15 years ago, we would have set up a time to meet personally and have this interview. But we're still doing exactly that, but we've just broken up the space. So I guess theatre will, the one constant is that theatre will adapt to whatever is happening. And I think the future of theatre is change.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the work you did during the pandemic, because I know there was a lot of interesting work that was evolving from the writing that you had done and through interactions with groups within India and abroad. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I think what was interesting is that I worked with groups internationally with great ease, right from my home. I worked with a company in Germany, several companies, 3 companies in the US, and 1 company in Calcutta. So it was possible for me to do that. Maybe it's different to what I would do in a real space, in a physical space, that in a virtual space, it's different. But I learned a lot. I mean, I did direct some of my plays. I directed other plays written by other people. And I found ways of doing them digitally. Like other theater, it's not that I did anything great or different, but I was a part of that pioneer movement where we designed things for the digital medium, and we did things, and that was very interesting. I even wrote a play for the digital platform, which was commissioned by a group in New York. And that was a short play. And then I directed 3 of my plays for Zoom and redesigned them so that I could do that. And somehow sort of brought in my experience as a filmmaker, my experience as a theater worker, and I learned a little bit more about digital technology, which I didn't know. So it's been a year of learning for me. I've learned a lot by doing a lot as well.
Are these plays available for people to watch online?
Yes, some of them, the links are still open. Those are open for viewing. Some of them have closed. Yes, they are. And I think that's also a wonderful thing about the digital medium, is that you see, even though you perform live in the sense that, your audiences are watching you while you're performing, even virtually, you also have the advantage that it stays on as a document.
Right.
So people can view it anytime, anywhere.
Another aspect of your journey has been to kind of educate and take master classes in writing and different aspects of stagecraft. What is the most rewarding thing about this new phase? And I know you've been doing it in real as well. I mean, face-to-face workshops and all of that. But digitally also now connecting with people who want to learn, who are hungry to learn. What is it, the one thing that you want to impart through this process to people who want to grow? Because there's so many challenges.
Yeah.
For writers, there always been challenges. What do you want to say to them, to write with hope, to write with this idea that something is possible, that doors can open, even today? How would you communicate that through your teachings or through your work with them?
Well, the workshops that I've been doing online, they're a little different from the workshops I used to do in person. But I think let's just look at the advantages of doing it online rather than sort of going backwards and saying, oh, this was possible in person and it's not. I'm not going to get into that zone at all. I'm just going to talk about the advantages of doing it online. The first advantage is that you have people in their own spaces, right? Surrounded by their own objects, their own, they're not coming to a classroom or a rehearsal room or whatever. So I think I had them go a little deeper into their own world And I think that's what good writing is about, is that you are revisiting your world and going a little deeper into it. The world that you took for granted, which you've obviously experienced in one way on a conscious level, just the periphery of it, but on a subconscious level, you've probably absorbed it means a lot more to you than you might actually know. And I think the kind of process I take the writers and sometimes actors even is to just go a little deeper instead of going wider. And I begin with very simple exercises. The first one is, what do you see outside your window? And I get them to take pictures and share them. And then I get them to take pictures of what they see outside the same window a day later. And so look at the changes, what's changed and things. I get them to explore objects that are right there on their desk. And that just opens up things, because writing is reflective. It is, in a way, you are connecting with the world, but at the same time, you are isolating yourself from those experiences in order to write about them. But what's happened with the pandemic is that because this sort of this kind of reclusive space has been thrust upon people, people want just the opposite. So I think it helps to send their gaze outward, but at the same time take advantage of the fact that they are in a private space of their own, and they could shut off their cameras and their digital equipment, and then it's them and their writing, or themselves and their thoughts. And it's not such a bad thing. It can be a very healing process.
Right. This is another thing that has always struck me about you, just how light your existence is. I never see you weighed down by past things, and you never want to, like multiple times you have told me today that you don't want to go into the past. You want to stay in the present, you want to create, and that's something extremely cleansing, because you just travel light and you just create as you go along. Have you ever been, I'm sure that you've only carried things which have really nourished you as a person and as a writer. Any memories of people who have come up to you after a performance of a play and said, this moved me, this changed my life, this healed me and transformed me? I'm sure there have been many such instances, but tell me a few if you can.
Yeah, there are plenty of instances, but let me narrate the very first one where I felt, it's worth it, what I'm doing, just for that moment, This was a production of Final Solutions, Alec Padamsi's production, in fact. And it was in Bombay. He'd invited me over. I think it was the second or third show. And in the play, people may not realize it, there's one character who is called Bobby. He calls himself Bobby. And then in the course of the play, you realize, of course, you know he's Muslim, but you wonder why his name is Bobby. And then you come to know his name was Baban, but he changed it to Bobby because he wanted to assimilate in college. And how, in the course of the play, he feels he is going to change it back to Baban. And I remember after the show, I was backstage, and of course, there were lots of people coming backstage, congratulating the cast and Alec and saying how interesting to have something so different on stage and stuff. And the shy young man came up to me and said, "Excuse me, I want to speak to you." And he said that, my name is Bobby. It used to be Baban. And now after watching your play, I'm going to call myself Baban again, right? For me, I felt that, oh my God, this is like, I don't know whether I'm mirroring life or my art is mirroring life or what, right? And for me, I felt, what, this is just worth it. I don't care whether I don't earn money out of this, or I don't get the fame and a fortune which movie stars get or movie directors do. It's worth it just for this.
Just to touch.
So that was one.
To touch lives. To touch a life.
Yeah. And in such a positive and proactive way. And I remember another memory, and these things happen more often than I'm narrating. Like I remember the very first show of 30 Days in September. This was Lilette's production, Lilette the Bass production. And it was very powerful, and it was in Prithvi Theatre, so you can actually see the audience around you. And I could see that there was this very sort of uncomfortable silence while watching this. And again, after the play, this person came up to me and she just said, "Can I hug you?" And I said, "Yes." And she gave me this one tight hug, and her eyes were moist. And she didn't say anything, but I knew that somewhere the play had released something in her, something that had been festering, maybe, and there was a process of healing that was happening right there. You could tell by the shine in her eyes that something had begun, something new had begun. And I think it's worth it. It's worth it just for that. Yeah.
Right. I just want to thank you for being yourself, and just such a quiet, graceful, dignified presence amongst us, and you keep just creating ceaselessly and changing, like as you said, lives, and in such a gentle way. There's not one combative bone in you, and yet you have changed so much. You've transformed so many things around us. And these are difficult times. These are times when they find it hard to draw hope in the scenarios, be it the pandemic, be it other circumstances that we are dealing with on many, many levels. What gives you hope? How, if I were to ask you to please give us one reason to hope that the future is going to be better than today, what would you say to us?
Well, I think the hope is that it's not hopeless, that life will go on, and who is to say what the future holds? And what's the worst that could come out of it is that all of mankind might disappear. And is that such a bad thing? And maybe the earth will live as a result of that. And maybe it's just our ego that makes us feel that we are important maybe we're the biggest virus on this planet. And wouldn't it be great if, all of us disappeared? So we don't know. I mean, that may not happen, right? I mean, we're going to survive, and we all want to survive. But
That's another playwright there. That's another playwright.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting talking about the digital platform, because I saw Don't Look Up. And this wonderful, dark, funny scene right at the end, even after the credits, where this guy comes out and says, "I'm the only person on this earth," and he's taking a selfie or sending an Instagram something.
Yeah, that describes us perfectly. But thank you for making us see something beyond our noses and giving us a larger perspective of life. Thank you for your time and your grace and your body of work, and I hope you continue to do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Reema. This has been such a pleasure, first of all, reconnecting with you. We're in touch on Facebook, right? I mean, that helps us stay connected. But it's always the excitement of having this face-to-face will always be there. So nobody can take that away.
And then something to look forward to in the future, probably. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Hi, this is Reema, and if you liked what you just saw, then do like and subscribe, because remember, this is a safe space for people to talk, share their stories, to hear each other, and basically make some time in their busy lives for unboxed conversations.